continue the conversation on yoga for wellness, which was the theme of the International Day of Yoga this year. And as they so beautifully guided us, that it can't just be one day, but yoga for wellness actually needs to become a perspective in our life every day. And so to strive to do that, we bring you this beautiful series once a week in which we have a conversation, a samvad, with experts and teachers and our masters, in which we get to hear about what is wellness, what is health, what is yoga. And with that, we are so excited to begin our first Wellness Wednesday series with Pujya Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswatiji, who, as you all know, is the president of the Divine Shakti Foundation. She is the Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance. She's a spiritual leader and a beautiful guide and teacher and mentor and guru to so many. And so we are so thrilled to actually begin our series with Sadhvi Bhagawati and be able to have this conversation around wellness and her journey on this path. And then in the series to continue, we will have more yoga experts and more dialogue around yoga, around wellness. And with that, we've had Pujya Sadhviji join us today. She's online now, so just sending my pranams and welcome, Sadhviji. So excited to begin the Wellness Wednesday series with you. And an
what a beautiful idea.
Really a beautiful blessing.
And it's such a beautiful idea that you had to start this. When you shared with me this idea, I just loved it because, you know, Yoga Day, and of course we have our International Yoga Festival, and there's these moments throughout the year that we gather and we talk about wellness, or in May we talk about mental health, but it's usually centered around a specific day or a week or a month or a holiday. But to actually have this idea of every week, let's just keep bringing people more and more insight and inspiration and ideas around wellness. It's fantastic. So thank you for this beautiful and creative and insightful, wonderful idea.
I was just sharing that in the presence of spiritual leaders and masters like yourself, like Pujya Maharaji, that creativity and innovation becomes a very natural, innate part of our existence. So thank you. It is your inspiration that has manifested in this series. And we're excited to be exploring the concept of wellness and yoga with experts and teachers, and starting with you along this path, along this yatra. And I actually just finished reading your book, your new book, from Hollywood to the Himalayas, and beyond words, and deeply touched and transformed. And I really hope that as people read it, they see your journey and they begin to reflect on the possibility and the potential that we all have to receive that grace in our lives. And so I actually wanted to begin our first question, and we wanted to keep this like a conversation and hear from you. And I was just saying this idea of samvad, so we get to see your reflections and your insights as we move through these questions. And so the first question really is, you know, you speak about your journey, and I would recommend everybody to get the book and read the book. But Sadhviji's journey is really one from illness to wellness. And I'd love for you, because I know you've done a lot of work around wellness, around happiness, around health, and your journey from the West to the Himalayas, from Hollywood to the Himalayas, and your perspective on what that means and why this land, this culture, the Himalayas, India, Ganga, is so potent with this the science of wellness. But also, Sadhviji, I mean, the other day I was looking at people coming to the banks of Ganga here in Rishikesh and thinking, reflecting on your book and thinking, well, so there's so many countless people who come to the banks of Ganga, but not everybody has your journey and your transformation. And so what is it that we need to also keep in mind to be receptive to that potential of transformation and wellness and health in our lives?
Beautiful. Wow. So, well, first of all, in spite of having so much seva on an overflowing plate, that's wonderful. And yeah, I think it can be best summed up actually by a quote that I share in the book by Pujya Swamiji from the very beginning, because as many of you know, I trained as a psychologist. I have a PhD in psychology, and I was very deeply entrenched in the world of psychology, both the receiving end and the giving end of it. And I was very, very deeply immersed in and enmeshed with my own story and my own drama. And Pujya Swamiji says to me one day, I was talking to him about the pain. It was before that moment of giving it. And I was talking about it. And he said, you people in the West, he said, you sit around in a dark room and you talk about how many molecules of darkness there are and what it feels like to be in the dark room and how long it's been dark and why it might be dark and all of that. You go around and everybody shares about the darkness. And he says, and in the East, we go like this on the wall looking for a light switch. And it was such a profound statement. And I think it really is the best answer to your question in terms of that power. Because in the West, we're really not just taught, but encouraged to be wrapped up in our own stories. And whether it's in our one-on-one, psychology therapy sessions where you just kind of talk and talk and talk and talk, and then the hour's over, but you're really just constantly being sort of encouraged to go into your own story, or whether it's in our conversations with others. I remember growing up, just being with friends, you'd get together and it always was something to begin with, oh my God, this happened today, and oh my God, this, and oh my God, that. And I can't believe I'm suffering so much in this way and that way. There's a lot of attachment to drama and a lot of enjoyment of drama. And it's very, very difficult to let go of pain when you live in a society that fosters it and that keeps reminding you are your story, you are your history, you are your identity, that keeps labeling us also. Whatever particular illness or ailment we may be moving through at that moment, or even not necessarily an illness or ailment, just a moment in our lives of a particular pattern of electrical and chemical behavior in our brain that we may call depression or anxiety. But we're so identified by that here in the West. It's all about you are this, I am this. And it becomes very, very difficult then to be free, because it's not just a passing mental state. It's not just a wave of emotion. It is who I am. And so letting go of an emotion, letting go of a grudge, letting go of a story is in many ways denying yourself. And so I think that's where in the West we see so much of people just wrapped up to the point of absolute suffocation, not just claustrophobia, but suffocation in their own stories and in their own dramas. And we just can't break free. Whereas in the East, and of course, this is exemplified so beautifully in spiritual India, which the Himalayas and the banks of Ganga really are the epitome of, which is you are not your story. You are not your history. You are not the pattern of chemical and electrical activity in your brain at the moment. You are divine. You are whole. You are pure. You are infinite consciousness. And so this stuckness with a story is something that you don't get nearly as much support for in the East. And, you know, in the book, I share the story of Pujya Swamiji literally saying to me, so are you going to take this to the grave with you? And I won't go into the whole story here, but it really is a very profound and also very fundamental way of the spiritual East, of every moment is a new moment. And so why would you at 25 years old, which I was at the time, why would I at 25 be carrying with me pain from years earlier? In the West, we say, well, of course, right? I mean, you got to go to therapy and we have to process it and we have to do this and work through it all. And in the East, the question is very, very simple. Why are you carrying this? Who are you? And I remember a couple of years later, him saying to me in a different circumstance, he looked at me and he said, when are you going to stop talking about that? Like I had just made a passing reference to this challenge and trauma from my childhood. And he just, when are you going to stop talking about this? And it's hard now to share how deeply compassionate that was. It may seem like it wasn't, but it actually was. It was so deeply compassionate because he was present, not with my story, not with my drama, not with the gold bars of my cage, but with the truth of who I was, which was done with the story. And so the only possible answer to that question was now. Like now I'm going to stop talking about this because I am no longer identified. And I did. That was almost 25 years ago. And I didn't talk about it again until it came to writing the book, when I realized, oh, well, it's actually necessary because otherwise people think that I just sort of descended upon Rishikesh from the heavens as, you know, sort of this perfect, angelic, untouched, you know, Stanford graduate. And it's not healthy for people because it keeps them separate. Then it's, I'm cut from a different cloth, they're cut from a different cloth. What I was able to experience is something they're not able to experience. And that is neither true, nor healthy, nor productive on any way. So I realized it's very important to talk about it so that people realize I'm not cut from a different cloth. I know challenge, I know struggle, I know trauma, and I know freedom. And you can know freedom as well. So that's the illness to wellness that, you know, and of course there's so much else that we'll come to at different times. Lastly, though, your question about people who aren't transformed. Well, there's an expression that says you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. And, you know, it's like that beautiful teaching that's one of Pujya Swamiji's core teachings of the sun is there, the light is there, But if we're going to sit inside with our windows closed, our curtains drawn, we're not going to experience that light. But it's not that the light isn't there. It's just that our curtains are closed. And so the work then becomes not about bringing God or bringing grace or bringing the sun, bringing the light, but about opening the curtains. In this case, it's opening our heart. And it's simple. It's not easy. I know that in the book, I did not make it seem easy. It's not easy, but it is simple. And it is something that we can all do. It isn't complex at all. What's difficult about it is that when our heart opens, we have to let go of that which we're holding on to in our heart. It's like if I've got a stone in my hand, well, I can hold on to that stone as long as my fist is closed. But if you make me open my hand, well, the stone is going to come out. And so when we speak about opening our hearts, we have to be prepared that the rock we are holding on to, that we have stuck literally in our own hearts, when we open the heart, like when you open the hand, in that spaciousness, the stone comes out. And so we have to be prepared for that and courageous for that. And all I can say lastly about that is it's so much better on the other side. It's so much better on the other side. And whatever you think you're holding on to, that you think is you, it's so much better on the other side of an open heart.
Thank you. You spoke about, you can bring people to the water, but you can't make them drink it. And I was just thinking in terms of how the COVID-19 pandemic has panned out. There's a sort of mixed perspectives, but my personal perspective is this been such an opportunity for us as a global community to realize the value of life and to understand and come face to face with the reality of death of this body. And so many people does not make the grief of losing your loved ones less, but it has been a moment of all of us globally realizing the gift of life, and also has sort of unveiled the lack of understanding that we have as a nation, as a global community, of what actually consists of true health. And I wanted to take this moment and reflect on, your recommendations and your suggestions and what needs to change at an individual level, at a community level, at a nation's level, at a global level, for us to really be able to not just talk about, yes, we do need masks and yes, we do need hand hygiene, but at the same time, we're talking about immunity, and people's understanding of immunity is so isolated. It's like you could, Pujya Sadhviji has been speaking about immunity and community and humanity, and that all coming together, and the intersection of all of that is actually what consists of wellness. And so I'd love for you to help us explore, where that sangam of all of that is for the river of wellness to flow in our lives.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. Well, we begin with Pujya Swamiji's famous statement about when I becomes we, then illness becomes wellness. Because I think the core fundamental teaching here is none of us can be healthy unless we are all healthy and our system is healthy. And that doesn't mean, of course, I can't be healthy if you've got a cold or even if you're, seriously ill. But what it means is that on a community level, None of us is separate from the community. If you think about trees growing in a forest or flowers growing in a garden, well, each flower, even of different species, each tree, even of different species, can only be as healthy as the soil is healthy. They're all eating the same soil. And so, sure, a monkey may come and eat one flower and not another. So one stays alive, one doesn't. But none of those flowers, none of those trees can actually have any kind of sustainable health if the soil they are rooted in is toxic. And in the same way, if our community is breathing toxic air and eating food that's grown in toxic fields with pesticides and fertilizers and rain that is not just the water, but that is bringing all of the pollution from the air, all the toxic waste that gets spewed into the air, then the rain brings it down onto the fields. So the food we eat is toxic. The air we breathe is toxic. The water we drink is toxic. So it doesn't matter how many multivitamins you take or how many minutes a day you spend on a treadmill. If your air and your water and your food is contaminated by the chemicals that knowingly, purposely, we are putting onto our fruits, our vegetables, our grains, that our factories to whom we're giving money, buying the goods they produce, are spewing this waste into the air, and we are continuing to go about our day not insisting that our government provide us with clean air to breathe. If we're continuing to buy things from factories that are polluting our waters, not taking care of our water bodies, there is no sustainable wellness for any of us. Similarly, though, as a community, we are also only as healthy as our weakest members. Because the truth is, in a community, in a society, you really need everyone. It's like in a body. Sure, you could amputate my feet and my legs and I wouldn't die, but I would be severely debilitated, and I actually would be much more likely to die of something connected to, an operation of amputation or something. We live in our societies in this illusion that somehow entire groups of our community, entire groups of our societies can be suffering without enough to eat, suffering without a roof over their heads, not getting an education, not having access to clean water, sanitation, hygiene, not being free of domestic violence or early childhood marriage, and allowing members of our society to go hungry, to not have access to water, sanitation, hygiene, because they can't afford it, because they're a certain socioeconomic status, or because they're a certain color or caste or race or religion, that we are able to just look the other way. Well, it's a very fast growing illness in our society, and ultimately it's going to kill the entire being. I could get a little cut on my finger, seemingly nothing, but a little piece of bacteria, a little bacteria that got into my finger. If I don't take care of that, ultimately that's going to make my entire body septic and I'm going to die. And in the same way, we have to take care of our societies. So I think, number one, that awareness that we don't live in a vacuum, that we live as part of a community, and that our Our soil, our literal soil, our metaphoric soil has to be healthy and strong. All of the members of the community have to be healthy and strong. And lastly, I think it's really important to rethink health and wellness, because it's not about just injections and antibiotics and medical treatment and emergency care. It's about building our immune systems. And the immune system is built in addition to the air and the water and the food. It's built by how we live. It's built by our lifestyles. And to give time and attention as societies, as media, as educators, as people of faith, to ensuring that people are practicing wellness, that they are managing their stress so that they have lower stress levels, that they are engaging in meditation, they're engaging in yoga, they're exercising, they're choosing healthy food, that as governments, we subsidize healthy food rather than junk food. In America, one of the greatest travesties, I mean, real travesties of justice, not just of health. You can walk into a McDonald's and, feed a family for a couple of dollars. But if you wanted to feed that family something better for them than burgers and fries, it would very likely cost you 10 times the amount. If you went somewhere where you were going to get them, a healthy meal, it would cost 10 times the amount. So we live in a situation where all the pieces of our society, from government, policy, education, business, are really set up in such a way that unless you are one of the top, tiny little percent, a healthy, well lifestyle is beyond your financial reach. And that is something that we absolutely need to change. We need to have policy in place so that health, wellness, immunity is within everyone's financial reach. And if it means subsidizing green vegetables, we should be subsidizing green vegetables.
That was such a loaded question, which you beautifully answered. And I think we could have one session just on that question and the different aspects of it. There is one small aspect, even though we're trying to keep this half an hour, this is probably going to be a little longer than that. But I did want to touch upon that, because when we talk about, someone, in our community not getting the health benefits and not getting even food to eat, our responsibility to be able to serve in that capacity is not just one that gives us any merit, but I feel like is the key to our own health. So where one side you're seeing obesity and you're seeing, sickness because of overabundance, and then on the other side you're seeing sickness because of malnourishment, the health is somewhere in between that. And it's something that in your book, where you speak about going to the schools in Delhi and then coming back and crying, and Pujya Swamiji asking you, is your tears going to change that? And I feel like if you could sort of speak to that, that would be really lovely.
Sure. So this is the health benefits of engagement. And the health benefits of that are on every level. We know, of course, that we are not just physical bodies. Science today has showed us irrefutably that what we think, how we feel, impacts the very cells of our body, impacts our immune system, impacts our digestive system, impacts our reproductive system, impacts our endocrine system, impacts everything within our physical body. So when we are feeling separate from others, that experience of aloneness is actually something that trickles down into not only our emotional and mental state of being, but also into our physical state. And we know, for example, literally that altruistic acts, helping others, have very robust, very profound benefits for our mood, for our psychological well-being, for our mental state, and therefore, of course, for our physical health. So that karma yoga, that seva, is essential for a healthy perspective, a healthy vision, because it makes us know I'm not separate. I'm not separate from those who are hungry and suffering and homeless. I am not separate. It's not me over here serving them over there. And so that awareness in my mind, that mental, cognitive, spiritual awareness expands my awareness in such a way that I benefit on every level. Mentally, yes. Psychologically, yes. Spiritually, of course. And even physically. Because it's propelled me then into action to serve and to help. And so, and of course, it's not only beneficial for us, it's obviously beneficial for those we serve. And systems of responsibility, of accountability, of interdependence, of human rights being simply the other side of the same coin of human responsibility. Yes, we have rights, and yes, we have responsibility. So as we really recognize that, we are healthier. The people who need us to recognize that are healthier. And our entire societies and communities become rooted upon a soil that is healthier because it's interconnected. And of course, that's my favorite forest analogy, which is of the redwood forest, that these trees, if people watching this saw my videos when I was on the spiritual pilgrimage a few weeks ago in the redwoods, one of the points that I just kept making over and over, because to me it's so deep and so profound, is that the redwood trees, which are the tallest trees in the world, and in many cases they are the oldest trees in the world, and they live on the California coast, so it's like the land of earthquakes and fires. Nonetheless, they grow the tallest, they live the oldest, but their roots are not very deep in the ground. We would think that, to grow so tall, the roots must be really deep, but they're not. The secret of the redwood forest is that the roots of every tree in the forest are interwoven with the roots of every other tree in the forest. And that interweaving of the roots keeps them all strong and healthy.
So in closing, because it has to unfortunately be a shorter session than we would have liked it, we wanted to know what is the secret of your health and your not just physical health, because you are so beautifully glowing and radiant, and for us, such a beautiful example of beauty and health and radiance and service. And so what would be tips and secrets that you would like to share with everybody watching about how they can stay healthy and stay well?
Okay, very, very quick bullet point tips. Number one, let's start on the emotional level and we'll come to the physical level. Number one, let it go. Whatever it is, to whatever extent you can. It's not black or white. Even if you can't let it go 100%, let it go as much as you can. Somebody said something obnoxious. Just let it go. Somebody didn't do what you wanted, or they did something you didn't want. Just let it go. Don't repeat the story. Neither, what most of us do is we then go and we tell somebody about it. And every time you repeat the story to yourself, to others, you're just creating a deeper and deeper sanskar of that. So I don't mean repress it or suppress it, but just let it go. Literally exhale it out into the universe, like Mother Earth. You know, kids come home from school and they cry in the lap of the moms, you know, so-and-so was mean to me. Literally just give it to Mother Earth, like you take care of it. I don't have the time, the space to hold such negativity. Mom Earth, Mom Nature, Mom Goddess, you take care of it. Exhale and just let it go. So that's number one. Number two, a really good sense of humor. Most people take themselves much too seriously. And I think for me, one of the very greatest blessings that I've had is an ability to laugh at myself, not in a denigrating, belittling sort of way, but just in an appreciation of the lightness of the psyche, the lightness of the ego, the lightness of, oh yeah, there you are again. You know, when I have moments of anger, of fear, of judgment, of resentment, of all of that stuff come up, I literally find myself saying, oh, you thought I wasn't, you know, occupied enough today that you were just going to drop by? Sorry, nice to see you. Thanks for, you know, dropping by, but I'm so sorry. I've actually got something else on the agenda right now. No room to schedule judgment. You could try again in a month. Give me a try in a month. I know the next month is really full. So just in a very kind of light-hearted way. I also have found myself in moments when things come up like that, turning inward and literally saying, is that all you got? You know, because we all have inner voices that tell us we're not good enough and there's something wrong with us. And for me, whenever that voice starts, I find myself turning to it and saying literally with just this little smile, come on, really? Like that's as good as you can do today? You know, come on, I'm sure you can come up with something else. And just having a little bit of fun with these really neurotic aspects of ourselves, and being able to laugh, of course, at the universe, at other people, again, not in a negative, denigrating, belittling way, but just in a like, oh, isn't that so interesting how the flow of human nature is manifesting in this particular situation at the moment through this particular person. And it brings a lightness into the moment that allows letting things go. It makes it much, much easier. So it's important to realize we're not making fun of or laughing at in that way. It's just a lightness of taking particularly myself and situations around me, my struggles, my difficulties. And it just enables me to let go of things a lot more easily, the lighter they are. And a constant sense of surrender. Just, oh God. And surrender with gratitude. I am quite literally on my knees in gratitude to God so many times a day. Literally. Just thank you, God. And if you can't think of something to be thankful for, thank God that your knees work well enough to hold you up while you are on them, that your arms work well enough to do this, that your brain is functioning well enough to simply say, thank you, God. and that the roof of whatever building you're in has not fallen on you as you drop to your knees. I mean, at the bare minimum, we can all be thankful for that. And that sense of gratitude for me is, I think, a really, really key part. On a physical level, I have always been a super, super healthy eater. I take care of myself on that level. I think it's important. Obviously, to do it in a healthy way, in a non-obsessive, non-neurotic sort of way, but nonetheless to be as responsible and aware that we have one body and we need to take care of it as best as we can, and that this body is our vehicle for awakening and our medium for awakening as best as we can. So eat well, drink lots of water, eat lightly, go organic. Be simple things, products, whatever you use, just as simple as natural. I remember years and years and years ago reading something that said you should never put anything on your skin that you wouldn't put in your mouth. And I've really taken that to heart and really tried to live by that, with the exception of high-powered sunscreen, there isn't anything that I use on any part of my body that I wouldn't happily eat. So I think that's enough tips for now.
Thank you. Thank you, Sadhviji. We'll welcome all of the participants, all of the people who are watching, to share your questions. I know that we weren't able to ask a lot, but I think Sadhviji has been so gracious and given us so much that taking this and digesting it and kind of, applying it in our lives is really the key to our wellness journey and our wellness yatra as we walk on it together. And as you share your questions and share your comments, we will request Sadhviji for her time again to answer some of those. So thank you so much. And we'll close with Om and Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari. All together. Whenever you're ready, rub your palms, close your eyes. We'll see you again next week, same time, 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time, Wednesday, for a journey on wellness and health and yoga and life. Jai Ganga.
Jai Ganga.